We spent a lot of time with Modern Warfare 2's early access PlayStation beta and went all out, from nailing some sick kill streaks to doing some myth busting and experiments, and painfully dismembering an enemy with a drill charge. Here's what you need to know to succeed as you hop into Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So, right off the bat, movement's got some fun additions this time around. If you are a 2019 Modern Warfare veteran, you will feel right at home with tactical sprint and sliding on corners. Although, the motion blur is a little gnarly at times, your mileage will vary on that. Sprinting or slowly stalking your way through areas will feel very much the same as past Modern Warfare games. However, there are some distinct changes, especially if you want to do your best Mission Impossible impersonation. Dolphin diving and hanging from ledges or shooting over ledges are a thing now. I've messed around with both of them, and dolphin diving is pretty clutch. If you're like me and you didn't know what dolphin diving was at first, it's basically taking a giant leap forward and going from the air straight to prone. Doesn't actually involve real dolphins, so, Now, I use it when rounding corners when you need to hold down a long lane rather than push through, or when you're under fire as an escape mechanism, and it's worked out pretty well for me. The time to kill, or TTK, in the beta is just forgiving enough that you can escape if you react quickly. There's some pretty cool utility with dolphin diving, like diving out of windows and potentially leaping over some of the low rubble in terrain. If you're really feeling like a daredevil, you could take a giant leap off a roof by dolphin diving. There are drawbacks. For example, it does take a second before you can ready your weapon and start firing again. Hanging from ledges is kind of odd in that it seems like you're doing your best impersonation of a Dark Souls 3 minion. You can't shoot your weapons unless you have a pistol as a secondary, and even then, the angle feels like a little odd. However, it is a pretty neat way to clamber out of sight and potentially do some parkour up a building like a shortcut of sorts. It's balanced by the fact that you have to get off the ledge to reload. The perk system has been a thing for countless of past Call of Duties, and a lot of them like Overkill or Scavenger reappear in Modern Warfare 2. But perks are built out in packages that you earn over time, so unlike Modern Warfare 2019, you don't have to choose between kill streaks and stacking perks like you did with the Specialist system. Perks are set up in a score streak system now, so the more points you get, the more perks you can activate. So kills, assists, defending a capture point, and many more tactics will help you become a more powerful force to go against. One standout perk that I think everyone should look into, at least early on in the meta, is the self-revive as your ultimate perk. Since combat is so fast and frenetic, it can be easy to forget to double check that the target you eliminated is actually dead and not just down. Trust me, I've had countless instances where self-revive proved to be really clutch. There's also other advantages to using self-revive. For one, you can potentially crawl to safety if you're downed at a distance. Teammates can revive you instead, and if they choose to do so, you can be revived even faster. Still need to test this, but if a teammate revives you, I want to say there's still a chance that you can use your self-revive again if you become downed in the same life. I mean, what I do know is that if you are able to pull off a successful self-revive, your kill streak count won't be reset, at least until you die again. But all in all, it is my personal favorite ultimate, although eagle-eyed players might prefer one of the other ones. I know there's a perk that gives you a better minimap, for example, so it's up to you. Some other perk packages to consider are how each can combine the different perks to feed off each other in a synergetic way. So extra tactical and resupply perks, that means you've got throwable gear for days. A varied arsenal means a deadly arsenal, and you can use gadgets to give you that extra oomph when engaged with enemies. Let me start with the funny shit right off the bat. There is a blow-up dummy. It can also kill you. Amazing. Seriously though, the blow-up decoy dummy is not a joke, and it caught me off guard several times thinking that it was a real dude. Definitely worth trying out and faking out a couple of enemies and getting them to fire, which makes them pop up on your radar too, if you're clever about it. Only thing to consider is that it's one of the few gadgets with an extremely long recharge time. Pro tip, the dummy will always orient towards an approaching enemy to let you know where they are coming from. There are some excellent gadgets to keep an eye out for. The trophy system makes its return and it still stops an airstrike kill streak like in Modern Warfare 2019. Seriously, I got the receipts right here. There's a personal radar that you can toss out like a landmine that will ping enemies in a decent range near your vicinity, and there's even a DDoS. Now the DDoS is my personal favorite because it can do a few things, like it, for one, tracks enemies within a certain range, although I'm not sure if each bar signifies 1 or 2 enemies. But using the DDoS though, it's kind of like a counter UAV, but it includes other gadgets as you can disable the tech your opponent is probably using against you. An added bonus, it fudges up their radar too. Win-win. Some other quick notes on gadgets. There is a deployable barricade, which is good if you've got a heavy weapon like an LMG and you like to mount it on barriers, walls, or floors while providing you some nifty cover like on the roof in the farm map. It can also protect you from a mine going off if you happen to time it right. Loadout crates are a thing. If you played Battlefield 2042, the Specialist Angel brings down a loadout crate for you and your team as well. Same thing here, except, in the beta, we've been playing mainly 6v6 modes and maps, and the loadout crate is honestly useless. Considering that you can just swap your loadout on respawn, like what's the point? You need ammo? Alright, we'll use the scavenger perk, or even an ammunition box gadget, or even grabbing a weapon from your dead enemy's body. These are all better alternatives in my opinion. Now this will probably be more useful on battle maps when you need to get a launcher out to stop kill streaks, but if you are in a pinch, you can always use it as cover. An interesting Rainbow Six Siege style gadget is the camera, which is good for watching your back or domination points, but it has a few drawbacks. For example, spotting enemies doesn't seem to give you any score streak points. Like, even a little. Although I can see some use for the cameras in the hostage mode, I really don't see much advantage in something like Team Deathmatch or Domination. Modes that, the vast majority of COD fans will be playing. The camera does give an audible ping when an enemy passes it, so it is good for watching your back or letting you know when an enemy team is approaching, say a domination point or hostage. Now, that's all good for gadgets, but check out some of these nades, man. You've got your classics like Semtex, Frag, Smokes. It's like getting a pepperoni pizza, you just can't go wrong with them. But may I introduce you to the motherfucking drill charge. The first time I encountered the drill charge was on the wrong end. I was minding my own business on the second floor and then blew up, and only from the kill cam did I see how the drill charge worked, and God, it is fun. It can go through normal cover, which is really cool, and it's really good at blowing up rooms with campers. You can even directly drill charge enemy players, and yeah, it looks gnarly. Another really cool nade are the shock sticks. Destiny fans that use lightning grenades might recognize the way shock sticks work. For starters, they're able to stick on any surface like a trip mine, and they'll keep shooting out bolts of electricity, ready to zap anyone, even you, within range. You can shoot one if they get thrown at you. I like to use them as a defense measure, giving me time to escape, but they're also really great for preventing enemies from pushing up on you if you are weak. However, I have seen countless teammates use them to breach a certain point. Anyone that gets shocked will have their finger seized up on the trigger firing wildly, which is a neat touch. The progression of weapon unlocks is both easy, but it's also confusing as hell. Not sure how much of this will change post-beta, but I did find that I was unlocking a boatload of attachments at the end of a good game, and quickly mastering and unlocking weapon archetypes within a few hours at most, sometimes as fast as a couple rounds even. The problem though, unlocking weapons is confusing, because there's no rhyme or reason and the UI is just so cluttered, it's easy to get lost. So here's a quick explainer. There are new weapon parts known as receivers, which are the base of a certain archetype like an LMG, SMG, and so on. Certain attachments that you unlock are universal and can be carried over to other receivers. This helps take out the annoyance of having to grind to unlock the same red dot sight or barrel over and over again. The problem? That progression tree doesn't always make sense. If you go to the progress bar at the top near the gunsmith, you will notice that to unlock the M16, for example, you have to get progress on the M4, which, okay, fair enough. But then a LMG? What? Or, take the Hurricane SMG, for example, an incredibly dominant early meta gun, in my opinion, that shines particularly in hipfire situations, but it's an excellent all-arounder type gun, so you want it, right? And to unlock the Hurricane, you have to spend painful rounds messing not with other SMGs or even an AR, but an awful burst fire battle rifle of sorts. It just doesn't make sense. So viewers beware, keep an extra eye out on the progression tabs if there is a gun down the line that you're hoping to unlock sooner, cause it is not as natural or intuitive as you might hope. Now, a few things to keep in mind while you're shooting, specifically if you've got a heavy LMG or another weapon with a high capacity mag in your hands. Normally you could reload cancel by swapping to a secondary if you're in a dire situation, but that's not the case here. If you start a reload and then swap to your sidearm and eventually swap back, you will just pick up at the old animation. Something to consider for sure if you know your weapon reload will take several seconds. Oh, and some thermal sights still see through smoke from smoke grenades, which is, kinda scummy, but so effective to shoot enemies that can't see you back. You know, Modern Warfare 2 does have some pretty neat QOL stuff added to the fray as well. You've got some wicked cool execution animations if you sneak up on an enemy, but the animations actually change depending on if your enemy is self-reviving or not. I've been on the receiving end of being strangled to death from an execution, so you'll have to take my word for it. PS5 and even PS4 Pro players have an FOV slider, which is really nifty, so I'm confident we can expect the same for our Xbox gamers in the comments. FOV sliders are a good thing, and as a PC main myself, it does go a long way in affecting my gameplay. Some other quick notes is that there's a pretty solid TTK, not too fast, not too Halo-y. You can escape properly if you disengage, and the 6v6 maps so far offer some pretty interesting engagements on both high and low vantage points. The perk packages mean you don't have to sacrifice your kill streaks for specialist boons, and with the weightier grounded guns, every engagement feels exciting. This being an Infinity Ward game, every map has tons of climbing routes and areas or angles that you can learn to use. You know, I mentioned the execution animations earlier, but there's even other fun attention to detail moments, like swapping to a pistol from the Hurricane SMG, and it doesn't stow away the gun entirely. You actually still hold the SMG in your left hand, so you can do your best Rambo impersonation. So COD now has a third-person mode, which will break down the why of it all later. But what you do need to know now is that it is not really a true third-person mode, because you can still ADS at any time, and it goes back into the traditional first-person perspective. But that being said, there are some neat advantages that you should be mindful of. For example, in Destiny, people would always equip swords in PvP, so it would take them out to a third-person perspective, letting them peek around walls without actually poking out into the line of fire. 3-peeking, as we called it, kind of works here too. You can scout out some danger zones without actually being in danger, unless, you know, someone drill charges you, but still, beyond that, a lot of the combat kind of feels the same, besides the odd perspective shift from third to first person whenever you aim. If you were wondering how to shoulder swap, on my default controls it was simply clicking down the sticks. You should definitely take advantage of this, because if you don't shoulder swap, you are at a massive disadvantage on every left-hand corner, because the camera by default sits over your right shoulder, meaning you have to rotate your character much further to see around. You know, aside from a pretty crummy UI and the unnecessary third-person mode, which we'll get into later in another video, and all that confusing progression, I have to say that personally, I'm actually having a blast with Modern Warfare 2's beta so far, and I hope you will too. Stay tuned to GameSpot as Aaron Sampson, Jake Decker, and myself are going to be diving into Modern Warfare hard. We've got some excellent videos cooking up for you all, including a proper in-depth post-mortem on all the good, the bad, and the ugly from that open beta. If you see me in the lobby on PS5, Xbox, or PC, say what's up. Until next time.